monitors, and depending on the number of participants required for a trial, that determines the scale of the trial. The sponsors usually delegate their responsibilities to a clinical research organization that manages the trials. So monitors are appointed by the sponsor. They should be appropriately trained and qualified, and their qualifications should be documented and filed in the sponsor files. Monitors should demonstrate scientific or clinical knowledge required to monitor the trial adequately. They must be familiar with the investigational medicinal product, which is the drug under investigation. They must be familiar with the protocol, written informed consent forms, and any other patient-related materials. And they must ensure that they are reviewed and approved by the relevant institutional review board or the ethics committee. And they must also comply with good clinical practices and the applicable regulatory requirements. So it does not only apply to investigator sites and investigators, it also applies to monitors. Some of the common qualifications of monitors, and this may vary from country to country, but the expectation will be somebody who's a monitor, and this also goes in combination with experience and other trainings. But just to list some of the common university qualifications that may obtain, it's the Bachelor of Nursing, Bachelor of Life Sciences, Bachelor of Medical Sciences, Bachelor of Pharmacy, a BTech in Pharmaceutical Sciences, or even a Bachelor in Medicine. So there are qualified medical doctors who are also working as monitors. The extent and nature of monitoring. So the sponsor determines the appropriate extent and nature of monitoring. In general, for a typical clinical trial, there are 4 visits that a monitor conducts. And those are the site selection visit, where the monitor reviews the facilities of the investigator site to ensure that they are adequate and to conduct the trial. The training of the protocol, that is done in a site initiation visit. And the most, so during the maintenance phase of the trial, when the most visits that occur are the routine monitoring visits, because that's after the site is selected and it has been initiated and recruitment has started into the study. And the monitor, the main task that the monitor conducts during this visit is source data verification. And the last visit that's conducted in a clinical trial is a site closeout visit, where the monitor reconciles any supplies that were sent from the sponsor to the investigator site and ensure that they are accounted for and returned to the sponsors appropriately. You can go to the next slide. So the extent and nature of monitoring continued. Considerations to be made when determining the extent and nature of monitoring. These are to be made by the sponsor. They look at the objectives of the trial, the purpose of the trial, the design of the trial, the complexity of the trial, or even the therapeutic area. Just a simple example will be a TB study will not be more complex than a oncology study, for example. So they look at that as they determine the complexity, the extent that the trial requires in terms of monitoring. The size of the trial, so that's how many participants the trial intends to enroll, the endpoints of the trial, as well as blinding. So blinding is when the investigator and the study subjects are blinded as to what treatment or investigational product that they are taking. This will normally happen when it's perhaps a vaccine study where there will be a placebo used. You can go to the next slide, sorry about that. Risk-based monitoring. So due to the 4th industrial revolution, monitoring has evolved also to be more risk-based, just because there's more technology nowadays. that allows monitoring to be done remotely. Of course, there are some of the documents that will need to be reviewed on site, but risk-based monitoring is the flexibility in the nature and extent of monitoring. It's intended to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of monitoring. It should be documented in a monitoring plan. So before a trial initiation visit, the monitoring plan should already have been signed off and agreed upon. It is a combination of on-site and centralized monitoring. Centralized monitoring is the remote evaluation of accumulating data, and it must be performed in a timely manner. Risk-based monitoring also provides additional capabilities that can complement on-site monitoring. Go to the next slide. Monitor's responsibilities in relation to the investigator. So the monitor acts as the main line of communication between the sponsor and the investigator. They verify that the investigator's qualifications and resources are adequate throughout the trial. They verify the adherence by the site to the approved protocol, and also ensures that written informed consent was obtained from each participating trial subject. And they verify that by ensuring that an informed consent form is signed. They also ensure that the investigator receives the current investigator's brochure. So the investigator's brochure is the document that details all the information about the product that's being investigated. Next slide. Okay, so continuing monitor's responsibilities in relation to trial staff. The monitor ensures that the investigator trial staff are adequately informed about the trial. They verify that trial staff are performing the specified trial functions, that the investigator delegated trial-related functions to only qualified and trained staff, and that only eligible subjects are enrolled into the trial. The monitor is also responsible for supporting the investigator by implementing subject recruitment strategies. Next slide. In terms of records, and this is the most important aspect of clinical trials, because these are the records that will be used to reconstruct the trial. The monitor ensures that the trial records adheres to what in the industry is termed the Alcoa CCEA principles, which is an acronym that stands for trial records. They must be accurate, they must be legible, they must be contemporaneous, which means they must be occurring at the same time. So it needs to be verifiable that this occurred at around the same time. That the trial records are original, they are attributable, so you can tell where did they originate from, or who has made certain entries in source records. And they must ensure that they are complete. The additional acronym there is consistent. Make sure that they are consistent, they are enduring and available when required. And all of this is to ensure patient safety and data integrity. Next slide. Continuing with regards to monitoring responsibilities in relation to records, the monitor does checks the compliance by checking the accuracy and completeness of case report form entries, source documents, and other trial-related records against each other. The data required by the protocol they also ensure that they do that to ensure that the data required by the protocol are reported accurately and they are consistent with source documentation, that any dose or therapy modifications any dose and therapy modifications are well documented for each trial participant. Adverse events, modifications, any medication and intercurrent medical conditions are reported accordingly. Subject visits are clearly reported in case report forms, and also ensures that all withdrawals and dropouts of enrolled subjects from the trial are reported and explained, because remember, participation in a clinical trial is voluntary and the subjects are free to withdraw at any time. Next slide. The last slide there with regards to records, the monitor determines that all adverse events that may occur in a trial are appropriately reported within the time periods that are required by GCP, the applicable regulatory requirements, including the ethics committee, determining that the investigator is maintaining essential documents, communicating deviations from the protocol and any other trial related documents, and applicable regulatory requirements. So they communicate that to the investigator if there are any deviations. The monitoring procedures follow the monitor follows procedures that are specified by the sponsor for monitoring a specific trial. So after every visit that a monitor conducts, they submit a written report to the sponsor. The report must include information about the monitor, the date, the site, the name of the investigator, a summary of what was reviewed and the findings, as well as the recommendations. Go to the next slide. The golden rule for monitoring, if it was not documented, it did not happen. So it's very important for monitors to review original records. Next slide. Just the key trial, clinical trial stakeholders. So at the top there is the sponsor. As I mentioned, the sponsor is the company or the entity that funds the trial, that writes the protocol, that develops the objectives of the trial. The investigators are another key stakeholders because these are qualified medical doctors responsible for recruiting the relevant participants that are required by the trial protocol. The study coordinator, this is someone who is working closely with the investigator, who's really the main line of communication between the monitor and the investigator. And you have the monitor who supports the site, who is the main line of communication between the sponsor and the site. The study participant, this is the most important stakeholder because without trial participants, then there's no study. And the regulatory and ethics committee, which are the regulators overseeing the trial. And at the center of it all is the investigational product. Next slide. Essential documents. These are documents which individually or collectively permit evaluation of the conduct of a clinical trial and the quality of the data produced. They demonstrate compliance of the investigator, the sponsor, the monitor with good clinical practices standards and with all other applicable regulatory requirements. Maybe it's my earphones. Can you hear better now? They demonstrate, as I was saying, they demonstrate compliance by the investigator and the sponsor and the monitor to GCP. Filing of essential documents must be done in a timely manner. This greatly assists in the reconstruction of the trial. These documents are also the ones which are audited or inspected by the regulatory authorities as part of the process to confirm the validity of the trial conduct and the integrity of the data. Next slide. Some skills and attributes of a monitor. So obviously these are not all the skills and attributes. One thing about the monitor's role, it's quite a dynamic role. So it really depends on the type of therapeutic area and the type of personality or background the monitor has. But in general, a monitor is somebody who has attention to detail, is somebody who is assertive, has high organizational skills, is flexible, is responsive, has high integrity standards, has business communication skills, it's punctual. That is very important. The monitor must be adaptable to change because we are living in an ever-changing world. The monitor must be willing to travel. It's quite extensive. I know for a lot of people traveling sounds like fun, but when you travel for work, then that's another attribute that you need to be able to have to adapt to that. The monitor must be a team player and must be able to work independently. Well, this is my last slide, and apologies for the audio if I was not very audible. Perhaps we'll do another session. But yeah, that's just an image that I find interesting and very accurate about what the perception of what monitors do. As you can see, the society tends to think monitors are people who are in the lab and discovering drugs. Other CRAs just think monitors are looking for other jobs because we're always complaining. I guess everyone complains about their job. My friends thinks I'm just flying around, sleeping in nice hotels and eating nice food. I think I'm drowning in paperwork, but what I'm actually trying to do is just try to catch some sleep because the work is just that intense. And that marks the end of my presentation. Again, apologies for all the hiccups at the beginning of the presentation and for my audio. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if there are any questions, comments.
Thank you so much, Tshepo. This is a very well put together presentation, very informative, and I will be sharing these slides. I'm not sure if I will be able to share it on LinkedIn. I'll see if I can. And if there's anybody with a question, please just unmute yourself and then you can ask Tshepo any question. We have 2 minutes.
Hi, Tshepo.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. It's Clementine speaking. I have a question there.
Yes.
The Thank you for the information that you shared. But the question I have is regarding entry into the industry. So
Mm,
there's yeah. So there's people who are always asking, I want to be a CRA, I want to be a CRA, I want to be a CRA. And I actually, as a CRA, I don't know how, like where to point them, where to direct them. For somebody who's just coming out of university, what would you advise would be the first step for, for them to go about getting into the industry as a CRA? Because
mm,
honestly speaking, I think we all got into the industry in different ways, and
mm.
to give a person one straight answer is very difficult. So what would you advise, would be the best way
Yeah.
to help people get into the industry?
Yeah, it's yeah, thanks Clementine for that question. I mean, I've also had that question a lot, and unfortunately the answer is cliched, and I'll tell you why. The answer will just to keep applying because I think most monitors who are in the industry have had their ups and downs in terms of applying and rejection, and in the industry as well, we know there's a shortage of monitors. It's no secret. And you also know that there are a lot of people with the right qualifications
Mm,
to get into the industry. Unfortunately, not a lot of companies lately I see invest in talent development. I think at
mm,
the time that we got into the industry, which was more than 6 years ago, there were, apprentice programs where they will recruit
mm,
a number of students from university and train you up to become monitors. But unfortunately, a lot of companies are not investing in that. And I mean, I guess that's an economic issue. And then the other thing is a lot of companies, as you know, recruitment is the job of the HR. And
mm,
as the clinical teams, we really also don't know what the criteria is, So unfortunately, the answer is always to keep applying, and contact recruiters. I mean, LinkedIn is quite a good platform, but then again, there will always be the question of experience. So yeah, I don't know if I know some people when when we started, some people will shadow monitors. I don't know if companies are still offering that, but I mean, it's worth a try to just write to a company to say, I just want to shadow somebody just to see how, the work is done. Just taking that initiative sometimes does, increase somebody else's chances. But yeah, there's no clear-cut answer, and I know it is quite difficult, and it is quite frustrating for people inside and outside, because people out there are qualified and looking for such opportunities, but then you don't know how do companies go about in making those opportunities available. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, no, it is very tough. I know a lot of people that have been trying to get in, and they're still trying to get in even now. A question from Matemane. I've just unmuted you, so you can go ahead.
Hello, guys. Thanks for doing a great job. I just want to act on Tshepo was saying. I think the first thing for graduates who are interested in clinical research is to do a little bit more work. And I know there's no degree that kind of strategically kind of, when you finish, you go to CRA job. So it's kind of look around. For example, the BTech in pharmaceutical science is a great way to start. It's a year course. I hope it's still. It's a year course that, after finishing your BSc degree or BSc Med or whatever, you can look into that. The other opportunity is to look around. There are still a glimpse of other organizations that still offer training. An example will be Medinova. They still offer training, although it's very competitive because, it's not just people with basic degree, but it could be an honors degree or a master's degree. So it's very competitive, and it doesn't matter where you start. You could start from the side and get into pharmaceutical industry or CRO industry, or you could start as a CRA assistant. So there should be multiple ways of getting in. The other important thing is to know how to tell your story during interview. And the experience that I have with that is to people that I met along my career is to say, as soon as you secure the interview, call me so that I can hook you up with someone who's in the hiring position, and they coach you with whatever company. It's again just telling your story in honest way, in a more structured way, so that the interviewer can buy your story. That's a very most important thing to do. So for people who are graduate is to look for mentors within the industry and kind of coach them how to move forward in the industry. I think that's the only way that helps. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a very important input you giving there, Matemane, and thanks a lot. Just to add, the other thing will be investigator side. I mean, I know some people who started from investigator side. It could be as a data capturer, and then at least you're exposed to the industry, you're exposed to monitors, because monitors work at the site, and that's another way to connect with people in the
Yeah, thank you, Matemane and Tshepo. Is there any other question? We have about a minute. If you have a question or a comment.
Yes, please, Victor.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mawasha Mlambo. Thank you so much, Tshepo, and everyone who has spoken. My question is also quite in line with how to enter the industry. And I wanted to find out, are there any professional courses or professional certificates apart from the GCP that one can take to increase their, competitive advantage? Thank you.
I'll let Matemane answer that.
There's no absolute specific thing that a degree or certificate, but I will still recommend a BTech in pharmaceutical science, because it kind of gives you a broader overview of the clinical research industry in South Africa. And again, to give you the edge is to, attend those type of free GCP workshop if you don't have funds to fund yourself to take you there. The other thing, there are quite a number, especially at the moment, quite a number of free webinars where you could attend. It just gives you, a better chance how a lingo, you get that experience of a lingo within clinical research. I think that's the only thing that you do. And just to look for those mentors within industry to coach you and guide you. And when you secure the interview, look for that assistant. Just going back to what I asked before I go skew, I go off track here. But there's no specific degree that you can do and say it gives me a better chance to that. So it's everything goes in South Africa. But when you look abroad, there are, for example, in bigger markets, your EU and US, they do, when you go up, they do have senior degree, which are very, very clinical research focused, whether you're from side or from the industry perspective. But the costs are prohibitive there, For example, there is George Washington University, they do offer a master's in clinical research administration at the cost of 45,000 USD, which translates to just less than $500,000 in South Africa. So it's one of those that very prohibitive. So yeah, but there are quite a number of institutions overseas that offer sort of specific degrees.
And also just to add, there are, just adding on the point of having mentors within the industry. I mean, there are a lot of these CROs are running referral programs. So it's kind of a closed industry. And unfortunately, sometimes you do need to know people within to stand a better chance. So.
Yeah. Sorry, just to add, Victor, the other thing that helps, I know most of pharma companies have outsourced clinical research. It's just to go on their website, whether CRO and register yourself so that when there's a CRA position or whatever related to clinical research, it could notify and you could apply. The other way is to go through agency, the quite number of agencies that are specific to a company. And with that saying, because some of the companies, they don't even advertise. So they'll go to agencies and the agency will pull out whatever they have in their database and send it through to the company. So just don't look at newspaper or LinkedIn only. Look for a specific employment agency that hire clinical research associate for different organizations. Thanks.
Thank you all for your contribution. There's a comment that I'm going to read out later on. It's from, I don't know if this is Chanel, because I see it's G8S. But to add on those that are looking to get into the industry, LinkedIn is also a good platform. So just add people that are in the same industry, that are in positions that you're looking for, send them messages, and you might get a response, and just interact with them. That's also part of building a network for yourself. Also, there's an organization called SACRA. It's a very, it's the link between all the stakeholders in the industry. So look for SACRA, become a member, or subscribe to the newsletters and get more information. And they've been hosting webinars as well. One was held sometime this week as well. Very informative webinars as well. So get in touch with them, and that's how you get to know people, and you get to hear about vacancies and openings and everything. And that's another way of getting into the industry. So this comment is quite long. I'm gonna try it. Try reading it. Great presentation. As a site owner, I would also suggest that people start from the bottom, even if it's an administration position in a CRO or an SMO, such as IQVIA. Sponsors spend millions and put their trial at risk by employing unqualified CRAs. Large CROs are willing to rather fill positions internally. So all the best to you guys. Informative presentation. Enjoy evening, Gabrielle. Gabrielle, if you can maybe drop your email and your company name so that I can share it with everybody else. I'm not sure if she's still here. Otherwise, I'm going to look for her and find her, and then I'll put the information on my post on LinkedIn. So yeah, also starting from the bottom and working your way up is another way of becoming a CRA. And thank you, Tshepo, for taking your time out to put together this presentation. I know you are busy traveling, monitoring, and for you to take time out to put together this presentation, I really, really appreciate it. And everybody else that has joined in today, thank you for taking out your time and for your comments and your questions and interacting with us. Thank you, guys, and have a good evening. Cheers.
All right. Thanks a lot, Victor. Much appreciated.